Hello，你好，欢迎回来，Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on December 7th, 2022. Wow, I had a long day on meeting with the art gallery regarding my residency with Grant Gallery and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to bore you guys with all the details because really there wasn't a lot of details. It's a lot of talking. Went through the gallery and checked out the artwork and then gave them the feedback and stuff like that. It was a good day. I got to spend some time with my good friend Taz and his lovely family. They had me over for a late afternoon meal. By the time I got home, I've been out of the house for, I guess, almost 7 hours. Yeah, like I said, very long day, kind of tired, and that is why we're doing this kind of late today. Um, as usual, just in case I forget near the end, as usual, if you wish to interact with me more, you can now find me on Instagram and Twitter by using my username at Johnny Tiger 1981 at Johnny Tiger 1981. Okay, you can find little pictures of kitty cats and action figures and some random crazy photos that I take throughout my journey and adventures. So, many of you have heard me mention this before. I am a very voracious and avid reader. Uh, I read a lot. I have always been really into reading books. Now, as I said before, the don't. Time is now 9 p.m. Well, thank you very much. Don't get that confused as me being a scholar or being really, really smart, because most of the books I read do not make you smarter. Most of the books I read are what I would say, what I call junk food reading materials. They make me feel good when I read them. That's it. They do not add that much to my knowledge base. They do not add that much to my understanding of the world because a lot of them are mysteries, fantasies, horrors, and paranormal uh, uh, kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm not sitting at home reading volumes upon volumes of medical journals or scientific journals or biography of real people. No, no, no. I'm not that great. um, but be that as it may, I have always read a lot, even when I was a child, as I uh, talked more about it during one of the Soul Search Sunday, where I talked about audio cassette tapes. And so it is in that vein of thought that I want to share with you guys today on some of the greatest Chinese literature, Chinese novels, some of the greatest Chinese classics, that if you ever were interested in Chinese culture, what kind of story make Chinese people tick, and even learns a lot about history, uh, then these are must reads. And good news is nowadays you don't even need to learn Mandarin to read them. Honestly, there are a lot of people who speak perfect Mandarin and still have a hard time reading some of these, especially if you want to read the original, because these books have been written hundreds of years ago. So if you want to read the original, then you have to have a really good grasp on ancient Chinese, ancient Mandarin, which is very difficult. I've tried to read the original copies of some of these, and honestly, I had it's almost like it's as bad as reading Shakespeare. Yeah, I'm sorry if you like Shakespeare, if some of you are Shakespeare fan, but yours truly is not that uh, well educated. I hit Shakespeare to me just give me a headache and nothing else. Um, But as I said, you don't even need to learn Mandarin to read these greatest of all Chinese classics. There are English versions, several translations, probably even audiobooks, although I have not seen translated audiobooks. But they're probably there somewhere. But you can definitely find English translations of these out there. Uh, Even if you can't find the complete book, there are many, many little stories taken from these books that have been translated into English. Heck, many of them I've told during Wisdom Wednesday or the Tales from the Far East on my podcast, the Johnny Tiger Experience podcast. Remember, the best podcast in the world. So we'll start with the four all-time favorite, the four greatest Chinese novels. Now, before I go into the list, I want you guys to just like sit back and actually appreciate the importance of this. Chinese people has been kicking around for 6,000 years, 7,000 years. I mean, yeah, the official written history is 5,000 years, but before that, even before that, there were tribes and villages. They were just not united. That's all. Uh, so for thousands and thousands of years of book keeping, book writing, storytelling, how many stories, how many books have Chinese people published, read, written? It's mind-boggling. I don't have a number for you, but we can easily imagine it to be in the millions or hundreds of millions. And out of these millions and millions of books, four are chosen to be the four greatest, the four must read, the four representatives of Chinese literature. And this is not me picking them. I said these four are the greatest. This is legit. Like you go to a Chinese university and ask people what are the four greatest Chinese novels of all time. 99.9% of them is going to name these four books because this is uh, basically universally acknowledged by Chinese people, by emperors, by kings and queens, by professors and peasants, by servants and maids, that these were the four best of all time. So, what are the four books that are so awesome, so impressive that you really need, should read if you're into Chinese culture at all? Number one, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. As soon as I say this, a lot of you probably has said, I heard that before. Yeah, because it has been turned into video games and computer games and TV series and cartoons. Okay, a few of the things that I can think of that were um, taken from that were inspired by the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a Dynasty Warrior video game. That's one of them. The Honor of Kings computer game. That's another one. And we can sit here and just like name a lot more of those, but you get the idea. This book is so influential that Japanese game makers, U.S. game makers, cartoon illustrators have taken inspiration from it. When comparing to Western literature, the closest I can give you a comparison to is uh, uh, probably George R. R. Martin's Game of Thrones, aka A Song of Ice and Fire. In fact, those of you that read Song of Ice and Fire, or you're familiar with Game of Thrones and the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you will notice that Martin took a lot of inspiration from this Chinese classic. A lot of the battle scenes, a lot of the strategies, a lot of the alliances, a lot of the politics in Game of Thrones almost directly copied from Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Now, I'm not going to say that Martin intentionally copied a Chinese book, but I'm very, very confident to tell you that George R. Martin read Romance of the Three Kingdoms because otherwise it's too uncanny. Now, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a historical fiction, so it's not as much fantasy as Game of Thrones. There's no dragon, there's no um, magic. There's a little bit of mentioning of gods and spirits, but they are not part of the story. They're more like religion of the characters involved, so they don't really play a part in the story. Um, so it is a lot more realistic, and it talks about a period of time in real Chinese history, about 2,000 years ago, uh, when China was fractured into three kingdoms, and the three kingdoms went to war with each other, and finally, the one kingdom, the kingdom of Wei, defeated the other two kingdoms and was able to reunite China. Uh, I mean, this is a very, very simplified version. And if I have to talk about Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I can sit here for the entire evening, and, and we still have things to talk about. There's a lot of heroes, a lot of warriors, tactics, strategies, human interaction, and villains, and uh, there's just so much going on with the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I've watched uh, TV series and movies about from Romance of the Three Kingdoms uh, more than 20 times, and I've read the books more than 20 times, and I still can't tell you that I know everything there is to know about Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Now, one thing I want to caution you guys about is at the end of the day, you need to remember Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a historical fiction. Now, I'm putting the emphasis on fiction because there are a lot of people who read Romance of the Three Kingdoms and they say, now I know what the Three Kingdoms were about. I know what these characters' motives were. I know the history. No, you don't know the history. You just know the story. Because for story's sake, there's always going to be a need for structure, like good versus evil, right versus wrong. So in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you get this very black and white idea that the one kingdom is a good guy, one kingdom is a bad guy, the other kingdom is sometimes good, sometimes bad, and the good guy beat the bad guy, but the bad guy betray the good guy. You get that kind of dynamic. The real history didn't play out like that. So if you are really interested in true history, then I suggest after reading Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you actually go research these characters, and you will find to your surprise these characters were nothing like how they were depicted in Romance of the Three Kingdoms in real history. Now, if you don't care about the real history, you just want a good story, then by all means, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, great story. That's why it's one of the best, one of the four best Chinese novels of all time. Number two, Outlaws of the Marsh. Outlaws of the Marsh. Sometimes this book sometimes called Water Margin. This book takes place in the Song Dynasty when 108 heroic characters were forced into becoming outlaws by the government. And the book talk about how they fight against inequality, they fight against oppression, a lot of heroes, a lot of martial arts, a lot of great heroic deeds in this book. This is one of my personal favorite, like the Outlaws of the Marsh. I will compare it to Robin Hood, the Tales of Robin Hood, because this is basically a Chinese version of Robin Hood. Uh, and it's just wonderful. If you like books that have a lot of great warriors and characters, and the characters are easy to understand, their motives are not politically motivated, and every character have a different set of skills and martial arts and stuff like that, that's a book for you. Right? There's 108 of those guys, and every one of them is very unique in their own way. You have like someone who have super strength, and someone who is deadly with a sword, and someone who is got like super speed, and someone who is the best thief in the world, just to name a few. So yeah, Outlaw of the Marsh, or AKA the Water Margins, is another one of the four of the greatest Chinese literature of all time. Um, oh, let me give you guys the Chinese name of these books as well, just in case. So, backtracking a little bit, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The Chinese name of this book is called "San Guo Yan Yi." "San Guo Yan Yi." "San Guo" means three kingdom. "Yan Yi" means literature, book, story. The second one, the Outlaws of the Marsh, aka Water Margin. This one is called 水浒传." 水浒传. Shui means water, Hu means tiger, Zhuan, again, this word means collection, volume, story. So direct translation should be the tail of the water tiger, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense. It's just because these outlaws, they were referred to as water tigers in the story. Number three, another one that a lot of you would have heard something about. This is called the Journey West. The Journey West. And Mandarin, this is called 西游记. 西游记. Xi means west. 游记 means story about a journey, story about an adventure. So the Journey West. This is about a monk in the Tang Dynasty who was tasked to go to India to retrieve some Buddhist Bibles, a Buddhist text, and bring them back to China to bring Buddhism into China. And on the way to India, this monk have to face a lot of demons and monsters who try to kill him and eat him, and well, there's some other motives in there too, but I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. And he's defended by his three disciples, and his one of his disciples is a monkey king, like the super powerful monkey that is the inspiration of Son Goku in Dragon Ball comic book or manga in Japan. The second disciple is a pig demon, and the third disciple is well, I don't really know what he's supposed to be. I mean, he just looked like a really big, ugly guy, uh, wearing a bunch of skulls around his on his necklace. He's like a cannibal or man eater, something like that. And the horse that the monk is riding on used to be a dragon. Okay, so the Journey West has a lot of fantasy element, gods and demons and ghosts and evil spirits, and the wars between demons and gods, and uh, uh, good versus evil, and the three disciples trying to defend their master, and uh, it's wonderful. If you like tales that have more supernatural element, things like that have a lot of magic. Think Harry Potter or Lord of the Ring. Actually, I always say the Journey West remind me a lot of the Fellowship of the Ring, by J.R.R. Tolkien, because there again, uh, it's one weak person having to go accomplish something, and he is defended by a bunch of very capable warrior. So the Journey West is somewhat like that. So if you like adventure stories with a lot of twists and turns and demons and gods and stuff like that, the Journey West is a must read. And it really gives you a very good understanding of the structure of Chinese religions. Last but not least, technically speaking, this last one should be the first because a lot of people say this was the greatest of them all. But I put it last because it is my least favorite. Like, I hated this book. I read it once and I'll never read it again. It just, ugh. Um, but that's not saying that it's a bad book. It's just not the kind of book I like. It's really the kind of books that I try to avoid most of the time. This last one, or in some people's mind, the greatest of all Chinese literature, is called Dream of the Red Chamber. Dream of the Red Chamber. This is called Hong Lou Meng in Mandarin. Hong means red, Lou means building, Meng means dream. Uh, so if you do a direct translation, it would be Red Building Dream. But when it got translated to English, they called it Dream of the Red Chamber. What is it about? Well, Dream of the Red Chamber, there's no battle, there's no uh, gods or demon, there's no fantasy element. It is, as best I can describe it to you, like a Chinese version uh, of what you would read from Nora Robert or some of the more classic love story of Western flavor. There's basically a lot of characters trying to love each other, cheat on each other. There's a lot of backstabbing. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of I love her, but she's sleeping with someone else. So I want to kill that someone else. And why won't she love me? And someone else love me, but I don't love her. And I love this person, but I can't be with him because our status, political status, is different. Oh God, I can't stand that book. Honestly, I can't stand books like that. Give me a good old-fashioned beatdown or battle. Yes, I am that shallow. I am that shallow. I have no problem admitting that uh, Dream of the Red Chamber. That's just way too much drama. There's too much lovey-dovey, melancholy, suicide and incest and cheating on your partner and all that stuff. That's too much. It's for me. I don't like that. But if you are the kind of person who like a good, very, 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 very complicated love story, then you will really get into Dream of the Red Chamber. And also, the way the book is written is very flowery, very artistic, very beautiful. It has beautiful passages like Romeo and Juliet. Uh, yes, actually, now that I'm mentioning that, uh, if you read a lot of Shakespeare, then you probably can enjoy Dream of the Red Chamber because Dream of the Red Chamber is very similar to a lot of the Shakespeare stuff. And you know how characters always backstab each other, scheming, plotting, betraying each other, and loving and murder and all that stuff. Uh, it's all in there. Dream of the Red Chamber. If you like that kind of stuff, all the more power to you. So those are the four greatest books, Chinese books of all time, must read in Chinese literature, must read for people who like Chinese books. I've read all four of them. Uh, Journey West, Outlaws of the Marsh, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Each one of them I've read over 15, 20 times. That last one, like I said, I only read it once. I'm never going to read it again. You would have to hold a gun to my head to make me read that again. Um, Now, those are like universally agreed to be the four greatest. But before I end the video, I want to give you guys four more books that are runner-ups. They're almost the greatest. They just didn't get picked to be the four greatest. But these four I'm going to mention are so popular, so famous, that they are just next in line. Okay, if there's a list for the top eight, this next four will be in there. So book number five is the God List. The God List. Some people call it the God's War. This one in Mandarin is called Feng Shen Bang. Feng means to appoint, to register. Shen means God. Bang means a list. So it's a list where gods are registered. This is an epic fantasy book. This is probably my favorite Chinese book of all time, Feng Shen Bang, the Gods List. This book talks about the end of the Shang Dynasty, when the emperor of Shan angered the god, so the god decided to ruin his kingdom, and there were a massive war with gods and demons on both sides, and the old gods got a lot of them were killed, and the new gods came into power. This is a great book if you want to get a better understanding in a lot of the Chinese Taoism religion. You want to understanding where the Jade Emperor come from, what happened to the rabbit from the great race, where a lot of the other gods, other like the four grand masters in heaven, the heavenly guardians, the heavenly soldiers, the golden giant. I can go on and on. Like a lot of these, where they came from, their origin is all there in the gods list in Feng Shen Bang. Uh, and it's an epic battle. There's so much greatness and badass moments going on in that book. If I want to draw a comparison, Feng Shen Bang is like a Chinese version of the Trojan War. You know how the Trojan War have gods and goddesses fighting on both sides, and a lot of heroes and a lot of monsters. It's the same. The gods list, Feng Shen Bang, is exactly the same. Book number six. This one is another really old classic. If you like if you want to find out about the origins of Chinese monsters and demons and beasts and dragons and phoenix, this is the book you need to read. This is called the Classics of uh, Mountains and Seas. The Classic of Mountains and Seas. In Mandarin, it's called Shan Hai Jin. Shan means mountain, Hai means sea, Jin means Bible, official record. So the classic of Mountains and Seas is a book of many, many, many short stories. Some of them are only a couple of sentences long, but it introduces every single Chinese mythological creature ever recorded. Even a lot of them you or I have never heard of. You want to learn about the golden centipede that have wings? It's there. You want to learn about the beginning of the phoenix and the dragon? It's there too. You want to learn about the peacocks and the origin of the peacocks and the condor, or the black turtle, or the keeling, or the white tiger? It's all there. The nine-tailed fox is there too. So if you want a great understanding of all the Chinese mythological creatures, then the classic of Mountains and Seas is the one to read. How about something a little bit more neutral? take the middle road. Okay, so if you want some love story, but you also want some fantasy, then book number seven will be right up your alley. Book number seven is the greatest Chinese collection of ghost stories of all time. And this is called the classic ghost and love stories. The classic ghost and love stories. In Mandarin, it's called Liao Chai. Liao Chai. Uh, it's very old Chinese. I don't actually know how to translate that, so we'll just call it the classic of ghost and love stories. This is again a collection of many short stories, and most of them touch upon love between man and demon or man and ghost. Some of them are about karma and good deeds and evil deeds and how some people are punished and how the good were rewarded. It's a in the end, it's a collection of stories that tell you to be good, to be nice, to be a good person. It's a wonderful story. Now, if you want to look for this one, I want to caution you. It's a little bit erotic. There are parts of it that are a little bit more adult oriented. So just keep that in mind. Speaking of adult oriented, our book number eight is definitely an adult book. So this one is not for kids. This is the best, most recognized erotic literature in China of all time. This book is called Jin Ping Mei. Jin Ping Mei. Mandarin, Jin Ping Mei. Some of you might say, how come you are not translating this one? Because there's nothing to translate. Jin Ping Mei means it's the last name of the three uh, female characters in this book. One of them is called Jin, one of them called Ping, one of them called Mei. So that's what the book's name is. Taken from the three female characters. This is again sort of a love story, but it's more like a sex story. Honestly, it's like I said, one of the greatest erotic literature of all time in Chinese history. The story is about this very rich guy who is, I guess you can say he's a bit of a Don Juan, or kind of like a Godfather, gangster, kind of really bad dude. And all the interaction he had with the women that he had as his wives and mistresses, and how they were treated, and what they did together, and you get the picture, okay? Imagine a Chinese version of 50 Shades of whatever you pick. 50 Shades of Gray, 50 Shades of Red. I know there's 50 Shades of everything nowadays. So it's like a Chinese version of the 50 Shades book. A lot of sex, a lot of eroticism, um, a lot of uh, reality stuff. Like there's no fantasy in this one. It's very realistic. It is definitely adult oriented. A lot of erotic stuff in there, but also can be kind of dark because it talks about how how slaves and servants were treated, and it didn't pull any punches. Let's just put it this way. So if you're looking for a realistic and tantalizingly erotic Chinese classic, then Jin Ping Mei is the one you pick. But just be warned, it's a little bit disturbing in some parts of it because women back then were not treated very well. So there you have it. Eight of the greatest books ever written and read in Chinese history. Have you read any of them? Are you going to read any of them? Please let me know in the comments. I will see you guys again tomorrow on Toy Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见.